Everybody wants to know what's going on with FAST. I'm going to give you a little bit of a macro level overview. As soon as I can figure out how to get to the next page. So first I want to give you an update on the cycle of the documents when right now the audit document is out there and open for entries and submissions. But the reason why we want to concentrate on getting this part of it accomplished because it has much impact to do with your annual financial statements next year. So the annual financial statements and the audits have a cycle. When users or CFOs submit their annual financial statements, it creates the audit record. So this year we controlled that. We were the gatekeeper and we controlled all the audits for 2018 year. But next year, as soon as you submit your 2019 annual financial statement, it will create the audit record. That way you can go ahead and get in there. I know a lot of municipalities and counties start their audit process as soon as their annual financial statements are filed. So you'll be able to get in there and audit those balance sheet items as soon as your annual financial statements are submitted and completed. There is one caveat to that. So if you're under budget review and a budget examiner asks you to open up your annual financial statements to make some kind of a change, when you resubmit, it will override and create the audit document once again. So that it does not go back. So just so you're aware of that, you don't want to start working on your audit until you know that your annual financial statement is submitted and filed properly. Once the audit is created, you'll be able to edit your balance sheet so that it matches whatever is on your balance sheet within your audit document. That role can be done by the CFO, the preparer, the auditor, or the auditor preparer. Those are the 4 roles that are available in FAST to make those adjustments. However, when you're submitting the audit, the registered municipal accountant for your governmental unit is able to submit that audit. They are uploading all their audit documents. They are uploading all of the additional schedules and financial statements, UCC report, dog report, court report. Those are submitted by a PDF upload, so they're not typing all of that information in again. They can upload that. And then once they and add any findings or recommendations that you may or may not may have on your audit submission. That will be a data entry point in FAST. The auditor will then submit that record. That's when the document is received by the division, and that is going on right now. And then the part for the CFO or the municipality or the county or the LGE, we'll call it, could do their part. It is at that time that they start entering in their corrective action plans and uploading any resolutions that go along with the normal submissions. That's your affidavits, your resolutions for that affidavit, your resolution synopsis of publication, and also your resolution for a corrective action plan if necessary. So given the time frame that is expected for this whole process to complete, if you were a part of the post-retirement health benefit Chapter 75 regulations, you had until August 30th for your auditors to submit. It could possibly be October by the time you have finalized all of the audit submissions to the division. So once all of the audits have been submitted or uploaded to the division, then we will create the annual financial statements for 2019. So currently, to date, the status of the audit submission, we have 35 RMAs that have submitted so far, so we thank you very much for that. They're also uploading or sending in by snail mail all of their audit records. We're doing it because this is the transition year between this year and next. Next year, all of the transmissions to the Division of Local Governmental Services will be done by uploading that PDF document into the FAST portal. CFOs, as of today, we have 18 that have completed the process entirely. So 535 of you are left, which, you know, I like that chuckle. That means you have until November 30th to get this all done. So we are getting some very good positive feedback. We've had little or no support, which we're pretty proud of that. I know it is a smaller module that you need to comply with, but it seems to be quite seamless. So the DLGS is preparing to roll over your 2018 or your audit 2018 approximately around December 1st. And that's when we're going to create the annual financial statements. We want to get ahead a little bit, about a month before the end of the year. This way you can start getting in some of your information into the annual financial statements before the end of the year. We realize, of course, you can't finalize it, but at least you can start getting all that information and get it started. The due date is still February 10th. There's going to be no extension this year because the AFS is fully operational. One of the things on the annual financial statements is you didn't notice it probably, but we did redact the prior year column on the printed version of the balance sheets, of the newly created balance sheets in the annual financial statements, but you'll see your prior year columns within the FAST portal. They just won't be printed because we can't compare apples to apples. You have a audited 2018 and you'll have an unaudited 2019. So there won't be a prior year a comparative balance sheet like you're used to seeing on your audit. It will just be a balance sheet. So this is probably why we're here today, the budget status, what's going on with the budget. The budget module is expected to be available about the beginning of October. That's next week. We are still finalizing some finishing touches on some of the options, which I'm going to go over when we get into the FAST module. But we're looking to open up the budget module for 2019 input. Okay, what we're expecting to see is that municipalities, not counties, and not fiscal municipalities, is to enter in their 2019 as adopted budgets. This will provide the user with the ability to get all their account numbers loaded, make sure all the numbers are in place, and you'll have a more seamless rollover into the next year. We've enhanced, Matt's going to get into that a little bit later in the program, the flexible chart of accounts. We've added some. He'll get into that. I don't want to steal his thunder on that part. We've added class codes so that you can organize your budget on its printout. And all budget cycles will be included in the one budget module in FAST. What I mean by that is historically, you had your budget introduced, your budget adoption that you sent in as a paper document. You completed your cap calculations on two other different documents. Well, your levy cap on another document that you submitted. You did your UFB on another document which is submitted. They were all running into silos. Everything, and then your post-adoption amendments, they were all done after the fact in a separate entity. Everything will all be one document, and the information will all feed over. I think it's probably the most proudest moments of FAST. I want to say that we're no longer having to run each one of these documents in silos and submit them to the DLGS. The information is going to be shared, so there's not a lot of duplication of entry. So budget status, all components are finished and will be finished for the 2020 submission to the DLGS. There's no other manual process. We're not going to be accepting budgets manually on a paper format. They must be entered into the FAST portal to be considered accepted to the division. The budget module training, we're looking to start that approximately the second week of October. We will have training just as we did with the annual financial statements and the audit in all the northern region, the central region, and the southern region. The training dates and locations for the budget is not finalized yet. The only finalization that I have right now is the southern region, Gloucester County, October 24th. Look for the egg notice to come out for those. And we also will have 2 in the central region. We find that the central region of the state is the most compact. Most people say the north, but it depends on where you divide the northern, central, and southern division, which I kind of find a little unusual because we're the 4th smallest state in the nation, but yet we have sections where it's almost like South Jersey is a different state. But that's another topic, and we all know about the Taylor ham and the pork roll. It depends on where you get, or the Giants fan, or the Jets fan, or the Eagles fans, as we had Vince present us to this morning. So we try to do locations for our training sessions in the various different regions in the state. Mostly because I think of traffic, right? You know, I know when I was traveling up in Morris County, I don't know what made me make it 9 o'clock in the morning, but I had to leave my house at like 4:30 in the morning just to make it the traffic. My GPS said an hour and a half, but traffic took me 3 hours. Matt lives in the Trenton vicinity, so he's used to rolling out of bed and 6 minutes later he's at work. So we applaud him for coming to South Jersey or going to North Jersey. Thank you. So training dates, locations, we're also going to do some training on the annual financial statements. We know that a lot of us CFOs know how to complete these documents, but not necessarily in FAST. Bill Homa, he's in the audience. You know, he taught me how to do the AFS. I taught him how to do it in FAST. So it went great. He submitted it. So we are going to redo the annual financial statements training. It will be a start to finish instead of a support. Like, we're not going to be there to fix your problems. Those problems should all go away. At least that's what we anticipate. Biggest struggling is the newly created balance sheet, where we had to assign FCOAs to those. And I think that was the biggest struggle. And then the workflows didn't fire when you enter it in those accounts. So we feel pretty confident. I always want to say pretty confident because I don't ever stand up here and say it's a definite, that things will be a lot less complicated next year. But we will be doing those training dates and locations, and those training dates will start mid-December and go through mid-January, weather permitting. I'm going to say this out here because I have a captivated audience. I don't drive well in the snow. If anybody remembers when I was training, when I was working for one of the software vendors, if there was snow on the ground, I'm staying home. So we're looking for when those dates get started, to have some type of a communication that we can get out to you in the event that the state is closed, because that happens too. But we'll keep you posted through our website and through egg notices for those training. So annual debt statements and supplemental debt statements, we are going to plan some webinars for those. You know, as soon as I can get to it. This is your FAST team, minus Lauren. She's holding down the fort back in Trenton. But we want to do some training webinars, so you don't have to come to those sites. You can log on to the division's website and look at those webinars in the comforts of your offices or where you're going to be. Annual debt statements are going to be due January 30th. There's no extension date for them. And then the division is working on getting all this data access to the public. Public access was the big push for the whole FAST portal to begin with, to be able to have this data to analyze the data, to do whatever it is that you need to do, and also provide it to the public. Right now, the only public access that folks on the outside have to your documents is going onto your specific website. So we're working on a public data hub where all the information that is entered into FAST will be accessible through the public. I think this is a good tool for your own personal planning, or your own municipality. When I first started it, I said, wow, this was great during budget planning when you're looking to what some of your neighboring municipalities do when you're looking at maybe your water rents, or how much it costs to run your public works department when you're comparing apples to apples, and other various different analysis. Also helps with your own. You'll have the storage here available for you to do your own trends and analysis over your budget planning. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Alrighty. So we, on the website, we're in the process of updating that constantly. As we put out more instructions, we can post all those on the website, and as we update the instructions that are already out there as well. And then also for the list of FCOA codes, we can put the list for both the annual financial statement and for the budget are going to be out there on our website. We're really trying to make the website a valuable resource that you can reference, and it's also going to have all the due dates as well for each of the documents. And we'll also post the GovConnects and local finance notices relevant to FAST out on the website as well. So that's the DCA DLGS FAST webpage. In regards to the FCOA codes, I've been in the process of cleaning up all of the budget FCOA codes. So that's revenues, appropriations, utilities, and open space. The biggest changes are going to come with the grant codes. The grants, if you remember from when the budget was available in FAST previously, the revenues and the appropriations, their codes did not match. There were grants that were available on one side but not on another side. And we have cleaned that up so that if you have click it or ticket on one side, you're going to have click it or ticket with the same final 3 digits on the other side. So if it's 10-501, you're going to have 41-501 for the same grant. So we're standardizing all the grants, and also the public and private contributions are going to follow a very similar pattern as well. The grants are going to be grouped, all the state grants are first, and then all the federal grants follow that. So I think the range is close to 400 grants, so it's roughly half and half for state and federal. It will have all of the standard ones first. So if the police grants take the first 25 of the range, and 10 of those are standard, in that 25, the next 15 following that will be user-defined. Similar to how we did user-defined on the annual financial statement, we're going to do user-defined codes on the budget. While we're trying to standardize as much as possible, and we ask that standard accounts are used as much as possible, we do understand that there's those situations in which you may have an item in your budget that is just that unique that needs the user-defined code. I think we're going to find that the most in the grant section. There are user-defined codes in other parts of the document as well. The revenues, we know there might be revenues that are more unique to certain municipalities than others, and also on the appropriation side. New too is going to be clear labeling of inside and outside of cap appropriations. We know when the budget was first made available in FAST and some municipalities were entering their data, that they would see the same code, the same item, but it didn't say whether it was in or out, and it would appear in one part of the budget when it was expected to be in another. All the codes are going to have the labeling of whether they're inside or outside of the cap, and they'll flow right to those sections. You're also going to be able to filter the codes by section. So if you're entering your revenues, you won't see any utility revenues, you won't see any open space revenues. You'll only see the ones just for your budget. And it'll be the same thing on the appropriation side as well. This will get rid of any of the issues where you're going through, you're entering your revenues, you're using your 08s or 09s, and then you select one for 55 and it sends something to the utility, but you don't have a utility, so then you're calling support. And then also I'm going to update a master list, back referencing the website. I'm going to update a master list that's going to have all of the codes, and it's going to be by section. It's going to be broken out into the revenues And then separate from those are going to be the grant revenues, just because the list is so much longer. Same thing with the appropriations, a separate tab for them and a separate tab for the grant appropriations, one tab for the utilities and one for the open space. So that'll be on our website soon, and that'll be a master list for reference of exactly what is available in FAST. That will include all the user defines, and it'll be sectioned just like you would find them in your regular budget. And then finally, from where a lot of people probably in the audience might know me from, is technical assistance and support with FAST. If you do need assistance while you're completing the AFS, the budget, the audit, any of the documents, we ask that you email helpdesk@dca.nj.gov during our busy season, the earlier part of the year, or you can call the help desk as well. It creates a ticket, and those will more than likely all get assigned to me. When you do submit a ticket, we ask that you state your name, the municipality or county that you're calling for, which document in FAST you're working on, and then a specific question or issue, a page that you're having a problem with, a formula that might look off. Anything as specific as you can be will really help us.
Let's take this, the last 20 minutes of the presentation. I want to give you a little bit of an insight on what the budget module looks like. So, of course, this is logged in. I'm using Elsenberger, and I also have Egg Harbor Township. Thank you, Jen, for letting me share your information. This is also our testing environment, so it's not the actual portal, so anything that we do here is just for testing purposes. So over to the left, FAST budget is following the same format as what the AFS, the ADS, and the audit module follows. Your budget certifications, I really want to talk to you a little bit about that tab because we've done some extensive changing to the budget certifications, or what we also know as our Sheet 2. That's the most descriptive of the budget process as it goes through the various different phases. So the document has a living cycle to it, right? You know, you have your introduction phase. That happens, the introduction is when we roll over the 2018 or 19 to the 2020. The record will be open as the introduction phase. So in this instance, the budget processes, if I was to go into that record, I would see that I'm in the budget introduction, and it will stay at that status until you submit. Once you submit, the introduced budget will be labeled as introduced for those folks that are self-exam, or if you're not self-examed and you're under budget review, it'll say under DLGS review. And then it will, the FAST system will notify the Chief Financial Officer of who your budget examiner will be. And that way, you'll have that open line of communication between the budget examiner and yourself for any of the edits that are necessary. In the event that under budget review that you need to do an amendment, that amendment could be one of three things. It could be a date amendment, like a public hearing amendment, or you know, a change in publication or whatever that is. That's one type of an amendment. If it's a DLGS amendment, meaning we're telling you to change your budget for something, then it will be a DLGS amendment, and there's a selection for that. And then there's the traditional amendment that you need to do because you and your governing body have decided to change your budget. And then any of those resolutions that need to be done for another public hearing would be then uploaded into FAST so that we know that that amendment is taking place. And then as you amend the various different components of the budget, depending on what it is, if it's just a date, then only the date fields will be opened up. But if you're adjusting any of the revenues or the appropriations, then that will open up. The whole budget document will open up for those to do. So any amendments that you have to do will be a working in progress to get to that final adoption. Only one record will be available at a time. So you'll have your introduced will be locked down read only, your amendments, if you're in that stage, until you submit, then that's the only document, or that's the only phase that's opened up. And then, of course, then on your final adoption, then it'll change that status to adopted. And then the next process is the levy certification process that the DLGS offers you. That communication will go back and forth between the CFO. I've also asked to add the auditor, so your auditor of record will also get an email so that they know the status of where the budget is. So most of the work that we had to put into the budget was related to the budget certifications, or as I call it, the budget process. Other tabs are still available, your explanatory statements. All that information will come from your budget document. So when you complete your cap calculations, that will already go over onto your explanatory statements. And then the only other things that you would have to add is any other pieces of information. But basically, those will be uneditable. They'll be pulling from other sources. We have our revenues. That hasn't changed, other than, like I said, like Matt was saying, the FCOA counts will populate into the various areas or the sections. The appropriations, we've added the ability to put class codes. That goes in the data entry sheet. So under the data entry sheet, you can set up your class code. So if you order your budget by administration, public safety, you can set those custom codes up at the bottom, and you just go ahead and add them, and they're user defined. And then when you're in your appropriations, you need to attach your class code to it. So your dedicated assessments, your capital budget, that's your 3 or 6 year plan, and your annual list of change orders. Also, the reserve for uncollected taxes, the amount to be raised, that has been significantly redone. That is a record. So you have to, because we moved from the annual financial statement sheet 25 into the budget because it was more related, the information from your budget is populated automatically. You put in your school, your regional, county tax, special district tax, municipal open space, the total appropriations and other taxes, less your revenue. It'll populate your cash required, and then what percentage that you want to use. It does pull from the annual financial statement from sheet 22, so you're not able to anticipate any more than you've collected in the previous year. It does have that logic built into it. And then if you're using the 3-year average or a reduction in the levy tax by appeals, you need to select that and upload the resolution that you're using that form, and that will then override your ability to override this collection rate from a previous year. And then we've also added in, of course, it will also automatically populate your amount to be raised and your appropriation for reserve for uncollected taxes, and put that on sheet 11 or sheet 29. Then we've also added an alternate RUT calculation. So say you want to do an average, you just want to do that whole number, or an alternate RUT percentage, you can then check this box, put in what that alternate dollar amount, as long as it is greater than what the amount that you need to anticipate or appropriate, and it'll then take that number and put it over to your sheet 11 calculation on your amount to be raised, and the appropriation for the RUT on sheet 29. So both of the cap calculations are going to be done within FAST. Both the levy cap and the appropriations cap will be then calculated on their own separate schedule. And once you're finished with all of those, Matt's going to talk a little bit about the user-friendly budget, because that hasn't gone away either. Then you would then generate your report and submit it to the division. So I'm going to turn it over for him for the user-friendly.
2 minutes. Okay. Okay, so the user-friendly budget, it's all the tabs from the UFB as you know it, minus the UFB2, the revenue summary. You won't see that tab here. That is pulling completely from the budget document, so there's no tab and there's no data entry for it either. The tax impact will look slightly different than in the past. All the data entry is going to be on this page. I know before it was split between this tab and another one in the budget itself. The appropriation summary will populate with the appropriation information. However, we know for items like the utilities, your salary and wages might be split between different functional areas, and you'll have the ability to separate that out on this tab. For example, if you charge your salary and wages, some to general government, but some is public works for your utility, you're able to make those changes on that tab. Structural imbalances are going to be very similar. Sheets 5 and 6 are completely data entry, the tax assessments and the abatements, with the exception of the percentages and the totals that'll calculate automatically. Number 7, UFB 7, personnel costs. That's one that we've gotten questions about in the past. Why is that data entry? And it is because the way that the items on that page are broken down is slightly different from the appropriations in the budget itself. So it breaks down employee count by supervisory staff, union or non-union, and those are numbers that aren't captured in the budget document itself. So that's the reason why that page is going to be data entry. 8, health benefits. It's going to have the same 3 sections: active, retired, and elected officials health benefits. The employee contribution amount will be entered as a positive number as FAST knows to subtract it. The accumulated absence liability is just a listing. It's very similar to structural imbalances in terms of structure. It's just a listing of the items, and you'll add each one individually. The debt page will pull from the annual debt statement, the information that displays on the left side of the page, and the right side, where it's the next few years and all future years after. That will be data entry. And then finally, UFB 11 shared services is a list similar to the other ones that are lists. You add each item individually.
So as you can see, the budget module in FAST is all one component, so that the various different pieces of information that you complete will then flow to the various documents that are necessary. So we also have all your post-adopted changes or amendments, the Chapter 159, the emergency appropriations, appropriation transfers. Of course, that's not a submission to the division. However, in order to populate in the various different columns for your rollover and for your subsequent budget years, you will put those transfers within your budget module. And then we have the change in title and text. So all of the budget components, all the budget processes are in one-stop shopping, I call it. So at this time, I'm going to open up the floor to any questions. As you know, we are scheduling some training, which is where we're going to go through each screen in its detail and assist you with how to put your budget into FAST. No questions? We have. Yes.
Cynthia or Matt, Bill Homa, Township of Cedar Grove. Question, Joe. Yeah, I've been doing financial statements for like 36 years in Cedar Grove, 6 years as an auditor, so like 42 years. And I think, and I know you're going to know my question, but my biggest challenge in doing the financial statements is that when I enter the information, I don't see how it looks on the schedule until I hit Generate Report. And I was hoping that, we had discussed, and you probably got this at earlier seminar, workshops, that if there's a way of us, when we enter it, we see what we're doing, because for me, it's been extremely time-consuming to enter it, hit Generate Report, go look at it, I realize I'm in the wrong pew, I got to go back and try to fix it, and then hit Generate Report. And for me, I have 3 utilities: solid waste collection district, current, and it was was extremely time-consuming. So I don't know if there was any progress with that.
So there has been some progress. We are talking about doing that as a later release, as an enhancement. Right now, it's not going to be available for the budget, but we're hoping to have either a print preview and also you just reminded me, we are working on the import routine. Import-export routine so that you can export your data fields from FAST into an Excel document and then put the information in there and then import it back in. That's going to help a lot with the grants and the IAs and those miscellaneous revenues not anticipated and some of those others. But yes, we are working on a print preview for while you're in each one of those screens for the annual financial statements. And Bill, we'll contact you because you and I have had many discussions on this topic that we want to identify which ones of the forms of the various different sheets would be most beneficial.
And two, with hitting generate report, we've got all these PDFs up there.
Yep.
And we've talked about that we can delete some of the old PDFs.
Yep.
So-
We're also looking at giving the CFOs the ability to delete records that are not the official records and move, once they're the official record, of course, you shouldn't delete them. But we're very, very careful on giving that option to folks because we don't want any record to be deleted until it's archived or moved over into the completed submitted format.
How you doing, guys? Mike Carino, Denville. Several things. The Chapter 159 emergency and appropriation transfers, especially the Chapter 159 appropriation transfers, weren't they originally included in the FACOAs when you were entering those, but now you have them separated?
No, yeah, they're separate screens. They'll be very similar in nature, but there's two types of amendments. The Chapter 85 and then the 159s. So they're just separate tabs in FAST.
Okay, so they're separated now because before you
Yeah,
had,
in
they
the
were
previous
within,
resolution, yes.
They were within the
Right.
items. One thing that I had to go search for last year when submitting the budget is the old checklist to submit. Will that be anywhere so that's prevalent so we can attach it to this document?
Right now, we don't have that built in FAST. You can find that checklist on our website as you did before.
Actually, I had to call Tina. I couldn't find it, so I don't. So if it could be more prevalent, I don't think it was in the old area where you had the budget sheets. So
Right.
I had to call her. For some reason, it wasn't there.
That's a tool in your toolbox. We can make that available on the website, but we don't have that right now on FAST.
All right,
So,
suggestion.
I mean, the validations that we're trying to put into FAST it won't let you submit unless you have certain things completed. So.
Right, it's always the
But your
the
uploading
revenue
of
su-
your, yes,
yeah, validation
uploading of
revenues.
grants, that sort of thing,
Exactly.
that'll be on your own to upload that onto your notes of attachments. We'll still need all your shared service agreements, we'll still need all your grants, any of your, trying to think of off the top of my head, pilots, those things that are normally uploaded on that checklist, you'll upload them.
Okay, that's what we would want to see, so we know what you guys still
Yeah.
need.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much. Stay tuned. We're going to do a repeat for tomorrow and look for our training sites. Thanks.